Hi, I'm Avery Davidson.
And I'm Kristen Oakes White. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
We begin with an update. You might remember my travels to Cuba in 2016, where there was the beginning of optimism for reopening trade between the island nation and the United States.
1 year and one travel ban later, not much has changed in relations between the two countries. However, TWILA's Neil Melancon recently spent a week there and found that things are definitely on the move, as he shows us in part one of this two-part series.
It's perhaps the most iconic song in Cuba, Guantanamera, the song about the woman from Guantanamo Bay. It's a song that symbolizes both Cuba and the conflict it has with its neighbor to the north, the United States. The conflict dates back before the current embargo to the Spanish-American War, where the U.S. laid claim to the bay. This tour group of mostly sugarcane farmers has come from Louisiana to find an agriculture economy that is not much different than these old coffee farm ruins that date back before that embargo. An old tractor like this is standard equipment for Cuban farmers. However, most things are still done by hand. This tour guide at this tobacco farm even said so proudly as he showed off the last of this year's crop. Machines do not roll these cigars. The work is done by hand. Randy Bracey, a cigar and scotch connoisseur when he's not running his landscaping business, approved.
It's good. I found home.
It's hard not to see the potential for tourist dollars here, especially since they have to sell 90% of their crop to the government at a fixed price. As we were leaving, in fact, there were 2 more tour buses that had to come to the farm as well, and they likely weren't here for an ag tour. Tourism, not agriculture, is what's driving the economy right now.
There's obviously a lot of people that want to go there, so that's, for Cuba, that's probably the quickest way to increase their economy is focus on the tourist industry and use that income to buy things like rice or other food products. You know, developing their agricultural industry and specifically sugarcane. They're so far behind, as you mentioned. It's going to take several years to bring that up.
It is so opposite of us. Let's take a couple of crops that we are prominent in our state and the breeding programs that are prominent. Sugarcane, rice. They're getting all their varieties from the national government. There's not a station dedicated to that in terms of a university. It's all part of a national institute.
Where there are national universities, such as the one that owns this orchid garden, they're thinking about tourism as well. Seedlings from these beautiful flowers will soon go on sale.
It smells like chocolate.
Beekeeper Randy Fair is thinking about what kind of honey you can make from this exotic flower with an unusual smell.
I'd like to have some honey made out of the chocolate orchid.
Figuring out ways to monetize everything seems to be the new revolution in Cuba. Literally, the tourists are coming in by the boatloads. And where there is industry, it is still hamstrung by old ways of doing things. You can see the hunger for it in places like this ration bookstore, where Cubans can buy food staples for the Cuban peso, which is 25 times cheaper than the cuc, a currency that is 1-for-1 with the U.S. dollar. In the market outside, they can find meats and other items, but with tourists so close by spending money at such a huge rate, you have to wonder why they would settle for rations and shortages. Ed Reeves says he thinks it will stay that way, which is why even if Cuba catches up with us agriculturally, he doesn't think it will be a threat to Louisiana.
We have the agreement with the Mexicans. The Mexican government, they can take advantage of 15% of our sugar market. I think if it becomes that in Cuba, I think that Cuba would tap into the Mexican portion of it. So I don't know how much impact it would have on the United States.
The Cuban Revolution ensured foreign investors could not buy land here. That means companies that could modernize Cuban agriculture won't invest for fear the government will seize their assets. So for now, they have to settle for what funds come in from the tourists, and with the recent ban on individual travel from the U.S., it doesn't seem like the embargo will be going anywhere, a catch-22 that Ronnie Gonsolin has an unusual solution to.
Their forte is going to be in tourism. This is too close to the U.S. We
should have done, once the trade restrictions are removed and the Castros are gone, we should make this our 52nd state.
A revolutionary idea indeed. For now, the natural beauty remains untouched and unspoiled here in Cuba for tourists to feast their eyes upon. While there are signs of change, for now, we're still stuck in the 1950s in our relations, even if some of the old ways are fading from view. Next week in Part 2, I'll cover some of the ways in which I see reconciliation between the two countries, including a story involving two veterans you won't want to miss. And guys, one of the big things that I saw there, the big takeaway for me, was that there are very, very few small children there. And the reason is it's expensive for them and expensive for the government. They're guaranteed so much milk and food every day, and it just costs so much, while abortion is absolutely free there. So it's not a problem, I don't think, right exactly at this moment, but 20 years from now, when a generation is erased, what's the country going to be like?
I know whenever I went there last year, we saw some children, but not a whole lot as well. I'm really curious how things are going to be there going forward. And there's a part of me that was hoping that things would ease up a little bit more because, frankly, I want to take my wife there.
Sure.
It's just a great place to go for a vacation.
Well, one of the best places that I saw that sort of says how things are going is in Vinales, that mountain town. And every house is either has rooms for rent, like an Airbnb situation, or that they've got more rooms under construction. And my question is, they're renting rooms for what they get in a month's wages. So why would you want to live there if you had a house there? Why wouldn't you just, want to rent that room out and pay, whatever to your neighbor outside of town and just live there? Because you're making so much money. That's going to radically reshape things there.
$20 a night instead of $20 a month.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Neil Melancon.